All right.
Okay, it's a different. Sorry, the link is incorrect. It's an old link.
Sucky. So I should probably tell some people.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize I was going to update that.
Fuck
Sucks that we
that.
have to. Tasha! It's a dead link. It's in we're in the pre-phase as far as
Yeah.
it's public, but there's no.
What?
It's just a stream starting soon. That's a bad link.
So
Use the link I sent you.
We're public, meaning we're searchable.
We should be, yes. I mean,
Right.
we're public as the live cast is public.
You know you're
The
live
pluralist
right now.
method.
I know,
how
but
can...
there's nothing.
Yeah,
there's
I have
no
it.
Sound.
No, but right here is
There's
it's searchable.
I know, but there's nothing.
No, that's good. Okay, this is good.
There's no video, but there's sound.
All right.
Right.
Welcome, everyone. This is the political method. Not political, pluralist method.
Started off.
Yeah,
already
starting
on a
it
rough
off
note.
good, man. I'm liking it. This is going to be pretty nice. All right. We are a political theory podcast and live stream. We're going to be focusing on hypothetical scenarios and just going over the methodologies in which we would enact possible change.
Sure.
You
We'll
wanna
mostly be
introduce-
basing it off of current events in the news, topical, very, and then we take from there and expand in our own way, in our own sort of thought process, how we would apply these hypotheticals. It's kind of an idea I figured, we always have these discussions at work and whatnot, on a Friday night. So why not we turn it to a live stream?
Yeah, why not have just a bunch of people fucking watch us have this conversation?
Exactly. Decisive opinions.
Yeah,
All right.
it's good.
So, let's just get right into it. Today's discussion, we're going to be discussing in light of the recent Hong Kong protests.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be going over that briefly, and we'll be discussing...
Actually, we'll be discussing the methods in which we might socially liberalize China. Right now, mainland China, not Hong Kong, actually has a constitution that establishes a freedom of the press, and then it is completely negated by Article 28 of their constitution that basically says anything that that goes against the state we can suppress. So
It's kind of redundant.
Yeah, not redundant. The opposite. It's contradictory.
But yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You're right. So let's start out by going over the protests to begin with.
Oh yeah. Actually, you want to start that off, Jeremy?
As far as just an overview of the protests?
Yeah.
So for the most part, if anybody's been following the news, you'll kind of have heard the basic updates as far as what's been happening within Hong Kong. I believe it was a recent bill that was attempted to push through that would allow for China to deport,
Extradite. Anyone, and basically, just due to the fact that Hong Kong and China have different judiciary systems, as set up by the 1997 agreement,
transfer of powers.
Yes, from colonial British rule to China's rule. It basically established two separate governments under one rule. The thing is, though, and the cool thing is, Hong Kong basically has a democracy, and it will have it for the next maybe 30-ish years.
I remember it was a 40-year.
It's a 50-year 50-year agreement.
Was the total agreement from 97.
Yeah, I know in 2047 is when it should lapse, but I'm not going to be able to math on the spot.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I think it's 30-ish years. Yeah.
For the full contract?
Yeah.
That would be, 47 would be the 50 years.
Oh, no. I knew that part. I was like, how many years do we have left?
Oh, how many years left? Oh,
yeah,
from now.
And I'm not going to be able to subtract all that in my head.
So there have been a number of incidents throughout the past couple decades where these sort of, overreach from China has caused the Hong Kong people to sort of rise up and protest against, given within their right to do that, against what they see is a massive overreach from China. There was, I believe we had mentioned, there was Article 23, which is an anti-subversion act, which was attempted to push through back in 2003, I believe. And they were marched against that. It was shelved. There was the umbrella protests back in 2014.
Yes.
Which some people may have heard about. And then recently, there was, of course, the most recent round of protests.
Yeah.
Where I believe they said 3/4 of the entire population I saw was this number. That might have been over-exaggerated, but
still,
pretty significant.
It was in the millions.
Yeah. We're talking, young college students to elderly to everyone. A wide demographic.
The Hong Kong society is involved in this matter.
Sure.
And it's pretty obvious that they don't want to cede rule to mainland China. At
Well,
least
see this
not
as
at
one of China's many
attempts
to kind of like
garner kind of power over Hong Kong. Yeah, and it's absolutely insane, and it's almost inspirational to kind of see like fucking average citizens just protesting. I mean, and in such high numbers, you don't see
highly
that.
coordinated.
Yeah, you don't really see that anywhere else. I mean,
well, typically even
in America,
examples like the U.S. or other countries, I think the U.S. is kind of an exception, where you think about it and you see these massive protests, but in comparison to total population,
it's a small
like the US,
percentage.
It's ridiculously low. I mean, we're talking about maybe you get a couple million out in New York or another major city for even some of the biggest ones, like they have the women's marches and the Black Lives Matter or other sort of events. I mean, these are minute compared to the levels we're talking about in Hong Kong and even some other countries. I mean, they really seem to have more of that, I don't want to say initiative and kind of, shit on Americans, but they have that sort of, there's a little more...
A collectivistic society.
Well, it's true. I mean, Americans aren't really, we don't really fall in that. And there's some pretty, well, it's pretty decisive when it comes to protesting within America.
Well, I mean, you can kind of attribute it to like a collectivist versus individualist society, and
as America is.
Yes, I mean,
I should specify North America.
No,
well, actually, United States of America.
That's very no. Canada, I'd say, is pretty individualized as well. But maybe Central.
Too many issues that perhaps.
Yeah, because I mean, you could definitely see South Americans and Central America, American countries, definitely have a more collectivistic. It's much more cohesive from citizen to citizen. And actually, there have been sociological studies, kind of actually. I guess reviewing that kind of stuff, which is really fucking cool. But I'm digressing. We're gonna go back to China,
back to Hong Kong, right now. Oops. So, from that, I guess we can move into posing our question for the day, and that is, what would be the best way to establish social liberalization for the citizens of China? And this is a question you posed to me, and kind of from that sprung out what this is. The Hong Kong protests actually. And from here, to clarify, from here we'll be moving into hypotheticals.
But again, the protests in Hong Kong just led me to realize that, of course, mainland China is trying to subvert Hong Kong's power before the agreed upon date, and in the event that they fail, when the agreed upon date arrives in the treaty between Britain and mainland China, that mainland China will completely ruin or disintegrate Hong Kong's current government. So I was wondering, is there a method in which either a foreign power or citizens within mainland China could push politically or in an activist kind of way for social liberalization? And
in particular, if it would come from more so within or even using kind of this foreign power to use that for their advantage, even.
I'm actually
as America does so well, or North America.
I'm actually quite excited about this. So the first place I kind of want to go is on the foreign side. How we might think a foreign government can influence China's society and their rule of law, and push really hard for social liberalization. And I'm actually wondering what you think. Do you think doing this economically would actually work?
Economically, in as far as
So right now, President Trump is utilizing tariffs and economic sanctions
Sure.
To try to get what he wants for trade negotiations. He's also threatened to utilize tariffs and other sanctions on Mexico for
thank goodness those
halting.
fell through.
We're not talking about that.
Stay focused.
Yeah, but another example is he's utilized or threatened to utilize sanctions for immigration purposes as well. So there are precedents for not only in this administration but previous administrations of the United States utilizing its economic power to kind of influence other countries. And do you think that the United States could do that? And how, I guess, specifically in economic terms?
In China. Typically, I believe that's one of the ways the United States, in particular, uses sort of their economic leverage to kind of persuade other countries to move in.
Their BDE. Sorry.
What?
Nothing. Big dick energy.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, keep going.
Come a little bit closer to the mic. You don't get too far.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is now an ASMR.
That's sort of like their first step to kind of, I guess, show the ways of the great ways of capitalism to sort of incentivize the people within that country the benefits they could have or achieve from that. And from that, I guess you would hope it would encourage that form of social liberalization within the country, or at least that push towards it. I think I'm blanking here for a second.
All right. Well, while you're blanking, I'm going to talk.
Sure.
So actually, so I asked this question because I had a couple thoughts of my own. Actually, primarily with the size of our economy versus the size of China's economy, and then the quality of the standard of living for our citizens versus their citizens. Now, while the quality of our quality of life is actually much higher than in mainland China, China's economy is actually larger than ours, just due to the fact that they have a larger population.
Well, larger, not in forms of GDP necessarily, but
no, but just in certain means of production and in certain sectors of the economy.
They're a little bit more reliant upon, I guess, your manufacturing and consumer goods sectors, not so much in the, I guess, on the technological side of things.
Well, they are making that transition, though.
Yes, they're pushing towards that, obviously.
Actually, really heavily, and we have the Huawei and shit like that happening, and then there's the intellectual property stuff. But that.
Well, they want to kind of push in that direction of having China sort of be like these name brands on the world stage, as instead of having just these other American or European brands move in and kind of have their products produced within China, but it's still not necessarily
a Chinese
maybe
product
made in
or
China,
of Chinese
maybe
origin.
assembled, but it's not.
The innovation didn't stem from the collective mind of China.
Some might call it, it comes into the IP theft realm.
Oh yeah.
But from that, expand upon. I'm blanking out here again.
Yeah.
Sorry. Back to what you were saying.
Okay, so just basically due to the fact that our economies are relatively equal in size, I honestly think that if we were truly to push for the use of economic sanctions on another country of a similar size, I don't think it'll actually work unless we truly do it over an extraordinarily long period of time, and we do it little by little, in which case I don't think it's super helpful. I personally don't think the economic avenue for China specifically is the way to go.
It's a very slow roll.
Yes, and you'd have to kind of do it through third parties. So you'd try to subvert their activity in other countries and try to
It's like subversion by proxy.
Yeah, exactly.
And continue it, and it's like a chain down the line where you're dealing with trade disputes in some African country to then again reach that final goal.
Actually, Nigeria would be a perfect example of that.
Particularly with China's influence in Africa.
Yes. And I'm referring specifically to the Belt and Road Initiative.
The Belt and Road Initiative.
And if you could actually promote infrastructure in Nigeria and take away the influence that China currently has there, that's one piece of the puzzle that you can basically, and this is going to sound really messed up, but the United States could use Nigeria as a kind of a stepping stone to put pressure on China. Then you go into Central Asia like Kazakhstan and
cutting those ties.
Yes, and start actually, you support them better than China can, and you add less strings attached. So that
Show
way,
them the greatness of America.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds rough. But no, I mean, the strategy in which you do that, I mean, you could cede back control to China through negotiations. In return, they will add a new law or allow people
Give
more ability to
Sure.
speak up and
kind of give them the freedoms that not America's promise, but they sort of see
as a right
throughout.
But I don't think that's the best way to go, especially if you're utilizing the economy, especially if you're using other countries as pawns. That seems kind of iffy as far as morals go. But I mean, strategy wise, that could be one of the ways to do it. Mm-hmm. Another way to possibly do this is through war.
We better jump right to there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be physical kinetic attacks. You could utilize cyber attacks and other modes of battle and conflict that could be just as effective. I mean, Russia's actually really, I don't want to say really well known, but they're pretty well known, at least at this point.
Well, some would argue that's a lot of the I don't want to say so-called, but the Russian hacks of the recent election, as far as Russian bots taking over and controlling of social media sites and having fake profiles, kind of influencing the citizens, pushing them against each other or diverting what they might think about a certain candidate or changing their opinion on something based on misinformation or the fake news, as they drop a fake news in here.
Oh man,
let's get some fake newses in the chats.
Oh no, please don't. Anyway, no, but basically what I'm getting at, so China actually their internet availability for citizens is really spotty. Many sites are completely blacked out. Facebook, I think, is completely unavailable.
Most
I'm not
of
sure.
Google is.
Yeah. So basically, I'd imagine, and I'm really not familiar enough with cybersecurity and things like that, but I'd imagine that we have the ability to break down certain firewalls and kind of reverse the blacking out of these sites, and basically allow all information to become available to China's public. By doing that first allows them the ability to become informed about things that the state would not be interested in allowing the citizens to
you mentioned reversing the blackouts. I mean, it's easier said than done. How do you think that would
again I honestly am not sure. I honestly think that it would be probably some sort of cyber attack on the the institutions that are controlling the blacking out of sites. I'd imagine that there's quite a bit. There's quite a few individuals who are actually daily and maybe even hourly kind of sifting through content, deciding, this should be available, this should not be available, and they're doing it either through keywords or
I think
search
they mentioned
content.
like over 1 to 2 million are employed by the Chinese government to actually
specifically
continue
in that
to
area?
scour through. Continue to scour through, and they also encourage a lot of these sites or more individuals who might post to kind of almost censor themselves. It also goes into reporting as well, where it's encouraged through ways by the Chinese media, leading all the way up to
So I
military
honestly
or
think
government action against them. But
I think a cyber attack on that institution would
so
probably
this is directly would be coming from like a foreign power, how they might.
Yes. If the United States were to attack another country through cyber attacks, specifically China, in the hopes to provide more information to the average citizen of that country, attacking that institution that kind of monitors content, I think would be pretty effective, and that could be step one in providing the citizens with the tools that they need to kind of rise up themselves.
Sure.
This would be a great way to motivate them to kind of take some next steps in the future.
How would you approach something like that without directly coming across that another country is sort of waging a war in form of a cyber attack?
Actually, that's a fantastic question, and that question is currently being argued by many policy analysts right fucking now. It's absolutely
Let's argue it on here. What's your ideas?
All right. So first
You've
off,
got the solution.
No. Okay.
You heard it here first.
No. First off, I wanna pose a question to you. Does a
Answering a question with a question. I got
yes,
it.
yeah, it's great tactic, right? No, does a
We got a real politician here on our hands.
don't tell people. No, does a cyber attack on another country warrant a kinetic response, like a physical response? Because
wasn't this actually? I believe I remember something about it back in the 2016 elections. I believe it was Hillary Clinton.
This
that had
controversy has been going on
with
for
Russia
a few years.
as far as Russia taking action with the hacking of the DNC. And she had mentioned that military, I guess, action should be on the table. Military action should be on the table when it comes to having foreign powers try to influence our election process like that. And some extremists, take it in whatever direction they want to take it.
I know, because there are a lot of avenues.
We should nuke Russia or whatever, take it from that. But
that's a little extreme. But
I don't know. It's tough to say. In my opinion, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Should military action? I think it depends on the severity of the attack.
Okay. So let me be more specific then. If there is a cyber attack on the United States electrical grid, and we are able to source that it is coming from, let's say, Iran, given their issues.
Right then, we're going to war with Iran. We've already got their ships lined up in the Gulf.
Oh, that's right. I should have picked a different.
Iraq doesn't want us to park those tanks outside the on their border, but
let's say it's Iran or Russia or any other country.
I think that also heavily depends on the country. It's sad to say, with directly relating to the United States, I would think that America probably, they might think twice when it comes to a power like Russia or China. But any other sort of power, no questions.
Any non-nuclear holding power is what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, they say Iran doesn't. But
anyway, but yeah.
And I think something like you mentioned a direct attack on the electrical grid. That's a pretty severe.
Yes.
That would cripple our infrastructure.
The reason I said that is we recently did that to Russia.
Oh, we did?
Yes, a couple weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not hear about this at all.
Serious. Okay.
Go off into this tangent for like
Okay.
5 minutes.
All right. So, dude, we've been
No,
way off on
no
it.
sensationalism.
Okay, no. We waged a cyber attack on Russia's electrical grid, or the Pentagon did, and there was a kind of a controversy as to whether or not the president knew about it or not, because there's some theories as to whether or not the Pentagon is afraid of Trump tweeting out.
Somebody passed them a note.
Yeah. Well,
He didn't bother to read it.
there's a theory that the Pentagon is afraid that the president will tweet out, "Oh, look at our power," like flop his dick on the table kind of thing, you know.
Check out this power.
Yeah. But no, we have we successfully attacked Russia's electrical grid, and it's said to actually be a response or a warning, basically saying, don't fuck with our elections this time, which I don't know if I really believe that's the real reason. I think there might be something else kind of behind the scenes going on that we may not be completely aware of.
As there always tends to be.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite surprised to.
I'm curious, how was this actually done?
Dude, I'm not the person to ask about this. As far as like technical stuff and the methodology, I'm really not sure.
Military tech here.
Yeah, if anyone wants more information on this kind of thing, they can look into the Brookings Institute. They've got some information about that.
And it's what's crazy is a story like this. I mean, it's something you would think you would hear on some sort of conspiratorial,
Oh yeah,
Alex Jones level website where it's like, oh, the U.S.
Yeah, well, we didn't
Russia's,
take out their
power.
entire.
Well, I know, but it's this kind of story you would see spun from that. You know?
Yeah. But it was definitely a cyber attack. And of course, I mean, the United States has had cyber attacks on us, not just from Russia, but from...
Wouldn't it be hilarious right now if this just got shut down?
just
the power.
Complete dead. That would not be fun. Get SWAT teams coming in.
Swatting. Nobody's swatting in the chat over here.
Yeah.
I see you, Bianca.
Oh, is Bianca here?
Yes.
Hi, Bianca. Sorry.
Outs on the chat.
Yeah. But anyway, what was that? Oh no, actually, Baltimore, Maryland has actually sustained a pretty heavy cyber attack. They don't know exactly who the hackers were, but it's truly affected their infrastructure. So like, their social security offices, there's a lot of their public works that are having some issues, and a lot of this is involving the ability to kind of get into their system. They're basically been kind of locked out, and there are a lot of hackers now that I don't want to say a lot, but there's a significant number of individuals or maybe an organization that are actually kind of ransoming this malware to cities, and they're saying, okay, pay X amount of dollars in
25 Bitcoin.
Actually, they're using Bitcoin, which is insane. And in return, they'll hand over the ability to get back into the system. And a lot of this is due to apparently there are like bugs in certain programs where, I mean, places like or companies like Microsoft or I mean, other large companies. I can't even think of other names.
Like
but
major players like
yeah,
Apple,
but they'll
Microsoft.
send you know how they'll send like updates for bug fixes.
Sure.
Well, a lot of these.
I remember over the years there was quite a few Apple had where there was that. I don't know if you remember that one.
Was
About
the
5
face
years
one?
back. No, it was the one where basically a certain chain of like letters basically would cause your phone to become either bricked or just like shut down.
Oh shit!
A few years back, like if someone texts it to you, that had to be fixed. So you're talking about kind of like backdoors.
Yes, and basically, a lot of these cities will not update their computers regularly, and they're not backing up their files,
Sure.
which means they are ripe for a cyber
As we know,
attack.
a lot of government facilities tend to be
Yeah,
little bit
and
behind
especially
especially
municipal.
local.
Yeah, municipal governments especially are.
look
are
at the DNC.
Yeah. Yes. Well, there we have it, folks. Attacks on China, the DNC.
Anyways, to get back. So, getting a little bit off on a tangent there. So back on what we were previously discussing. So we talked about we were on a cyber attack from a foreign power. Would that be
that would just
cause
be
for retaliation? Military action, I guess.
Possibly. First off, you got to figure out whether or not we can do it kind of in a sneaky way to where maybe they can't point the finger exactly at us. Because if there's some gray area there, then I mean, there's a little more leeway to for us that we have a little more rope to do what we want. Secondly,
Could backfire though if it
it absolutely could.
Especially on the world stage, it really does not look good for that country.
Oh, 100%. Actually, it looks pretty terrible. I mean, there'd be a lot of rifts in trust, especially between the two countries, and then even any country and their allies may have some issues there. But the other thing to ask, whether or not China would retaliate, is how massive and how long would the attack be? Whether or not it's inflicting physical, emotional, or psychological harm on any of the citizens, and that's open to kind of their interpretation as far as the psychological and emotional. And also you want to consider, will there be any casualties? Because like the electrical grid, if you were to attack that, hospitals are at a pretty big disadvantage, and maybe hospice care centers and things like that. There could
not to
actually
mention the actual, the initial attack could cause, I mean, as far as interstate systems,
lights kind of
infrastructure as far as that's concerned. I mean, there's a lot of,
so there could be casualties in that aspect, but
definitely casualties of the initial attack within the thousands. I would see if it was a total.
If you were to, if you were to completely shut everything down. Now, if it's just if you were able to specifically target the institutions that monitor online content and censor content, then there'd be fewer casualties and maybe a weaker response from China. So maybe not. And if you could do that just for a little bit, or create a situation in which that institution would take a while to kind of rebuild and allow the citizens access for a period of time, I think
that's where I was going to go with it next, because say something like this is theoretically possible and you're able to shut down these systems, couldn't you say that the Chinese government then may retaliate if they're able to get these back up and have even harsher restrictions on the people, and maybe not the time they were down wouldn't really be enough to make much of a difference, I guess?
I honestly don't think so. At least not in this case. In this case, they'd be more likely to try to retaliate or to retaliate at the country that kind of made the attack, rather than kind of, some other guys beat us up, we're gonna beat our children. Like, no. The government's not going to beat up their own citizens and impose more strict punishments because another government kind of subverted their authority. Actually, the more I say that, I completely disagree with my own statement. I take back the last 45 seconds. Just want to say that. No, I think now that I talked it through in my head and
in theory, I think you're right. I think it makes sense that why would they retaliate on their own citizens?
You're right. You may actually want to provide a more strict.
I mean, how many dictatorial powers have you seen?
Dictatorial, right? You said dictatorial. Dictatorial.
Excuse me.
Sorry. That made me very happy. Okay.
Anyways, how many dictatorial powers have you seen where, you know, United States or another, you know, Western power might interfere, and then they sort of lash out by taking it back on their citizens?
Oh yeah.
Throughout the past years.
And not only that, I mean, there are times when we'd sanction other countries, and like with Venezuela,
I think we have a comment about that in the chat.
Oh, we do? Mm-hmm. Oh goodness.
We'll
Was
get
it
to
Bianca?
comments. We'll get to comments in a moment. When we finish up these thoughts, we got a lot of comments from certain people.
Nice. No, but with Venezuela, the issue is that the sanctions that we're imposing upon that country is not really reaching the leaders of the country.
Sure, yeah.
It's not reaching the people that you want to kind of hurt. It's hurting the citizens.
You're further restricting the people while the governments are still
actually is kind of relating to some of the immigration issues that we're seeing. Anyway, yeah.
As well as a lot of United States' interference in the Middle East, you know.
Yeah, we do not have a good track record as it pertains to intervening in other countries, but that's another situation. Our topic is how do we intervene with China. Mm-hmm.
So we discussed this, cyber attacks as far as a form of encouraging the citizens, I guess, to congregate through forms of social media.
Yes, actually talk and maybe even organize,
express those kind of ideas. Mm-hmm. I believe I read a comment in an article that you had sent me about this, and they were discussing how, like, over the years they've a lot of the Chinese internet users have kind of developed their own language. It says Chinese internet users developed an extensive series of puns, both visual, slang, acronyms, memes, to kind of skirt these restrictions.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of, you know, a way of backdooring it, or kind of dog whistling, dare I say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that that's actually pretty cool. I'd forgotten about that, but no.
Something like that it's useful, but it's very limited in the amount of people it's going to reach.
And the scope of the individuals, it's just...
what portion of the population in the United States still don't fully understand how to, you know, work Facebook or what meme culture, or, you know...
Or what LOL is.
Dylan doesn't even know what this means.
Yeah. What's meme culture?
Exactly.
Anyway.
It took us 10 minutes to figure out how to set this up.
Yeah. 10 minutes? Yeah.
10 minutes.
10. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Anyway, but I honestly think that the cyber attack would be an incremental kind of thing. You'd have to utilize other methods to truly enact change within China's government. I honestly don't think
a multi-pronged approach here.
Yes. So first off, the cyber attack.
Okay, so moving on from cyber attacks.
Okay. From there, I think that actually it'd have to be preceded. So the cyber attack would be a secondary thing. First off, you have to build up a very small and in our case, or for China's case, a very covert coalition of individuals that would be willing to kind of protest.
Let's talk about infiltration from within.
Yes.
From an outside source.
Actually, a good way to do that is well, maybe not a great way. I was going to say maybe university students that are coming here. I mean, they're being exposed to our ideals and
indoctrinate them into the American ways.
I mean, that could be a method. I mean, I don't know how effective that would be. I'm really not sure. You really have to discover a method to identify the individuals who have an issue with China's current government. And probably the best places to do that would actually would be recruiting people in Hong Kong to go outside into mainland China and actually protest there. Of course.
Well, I would say Hong Kong has definitely been an issue as far as China when, you know, the people of China kind of see the sort of a lot of the freedoms and liberties they might have within Hong Kong. It's almost used as or China sees it as kind of
they see it as a threat.
Yeah, threat to their ways, and people coming out from Hong Kong within China, or even people going into China. And I think that's probably some of the reason they are having such a trying to crack down on a lot of.
Well, yeah. Well, the primary issue was for the protests. For the bill initially was there was an individual who was accused of murder in mainland China.
Correct.
And they wanted that individual to be extradited.
Because it was, I believe, was it a man that murdered his wife?
I don't remember who he murdered. I know it was a suspected
China, right?
murderer. Yes. And there's no extradition between Hong Kong and China. So the bill was put into their process, and the moment the population heard about it, they were not having any of it, because that would basically give more power to China.
Sure. It's kind of like it's a perfect storm where you have this scenario that comes up that China's going to take advantage of.
This is the perfect thing to do.
We can use this.
Yeah.
And it may, on the surface, to the average person, it might seem as if,
they're trying to do something good.
They're trying to, the crime was committed within their country. Not necessarily good, but it's like, okay, I understand a crime was committed within their country.
They should be
extradite this individual to, prosecute them in
the reason the
very fair Chinese government, the Chinese court of law.
And that's why the issue's coming up, is because the citizens of Hong Kong know that the judiciary systems between mainland China and Hong Kong are very different, and hence the protests. But if you got citizens from Hong Kong to move about in mainland China and protest, it would be more visible, I think, because right now in mainland China, I've heard some anecdotal evidence that media coverage is blacked out when foreign news organizations like CNN and Fox and stuff like that are about to cover any of the protests there. They kind of block everything out, and then you'll get, like, I don't know, some propaganda from the state in lieu of the actual news. And I mean, that's one of the ways in which the citizens of mainland China are not receiving all of the information that they could receive, especially regarding ideas about democracy.
So getting back to the point directly, so you would kind of, I guess, have this foreign power influence citizens within Hong Kong to sort of...
Yeah, I think that would be a pretty good way, or you could theoretically use a strategy that, unfortunately, this is going to sound bad, that terrorist cells use. They basically have seeds, and then they recruit their little pods, or a very small group, and create cells. So if you could do that over the course of a decade, incorporate seeds throughout China in specific areas that are kind of ripe for some form of revolution or protest, then you might be able to do that. So if you create the protests, get a few thousand people kind of protesting in various parts of the country, you probably want around 100,000 for that population size. And then you launch a cyber attack, allowing people knowledge of what's happening. I think that may be the best way to do it.
Well, let me ask you this question. What would stop the Chinese government from just taking a serious crackdown on these Hong Kong citizens that have come into China and sort of try to unite these protests, especially since they are on their own land?
Absolutely nothing. So that would be the issue. You'd have to do that in a way. You have to do it covertly. That'd be the only way, or you'd have to do it kind of like the way you were talking, kind of dog whistle kind of thing. And
sure.
That'd be the only
sort of building up enough, getting the ball rolling and building up enough steam before things come to a head, and not just allowing them to crack down before things even really kick off.
Yeah, I mean, even with like Tiananmen Square, I mean, that kind of turned into a bloodbath.
Kind of.
Yeah, it was only like 1,000 deaths or something, so it's fine. Estimated, because China won't reveal the actual numbers. Anyway, the protesting is kind of a rough way in which Chinese citizens could become socially liberalized. It's kind of, well, it's basically putting the cart before the horse. Is that the saying?
How so?
Because you're trying to utilize a right of a socially liberalized society to enact change in a society that is not socially liberalized. Yeah, so cart before the horse kind of situation. And mind you, again, China's constitution has the freedom to protest.
It's very clearly stated.
Yeah.
All right. So going off of that, what would be your next approach here?
The next approach, I think, would be a utilization of the concept of globalization. And this would be much later in the future. I honestly think that eventually that the more integrated the world economy becomes, the more integrated the people will be towards each other. I mean, we're already able to communicate with people across the world at a moment's notice, but the more our countries interact with one another, the more ideas are going to just naturally transfer.
Sure.
And the strongest country culturally will have the most influence on all of the other countries. So I think that I guess the best alternative is time. Because
wouldn't you say that's just kind of following the status quo, though?
Actually, no. That's exactly what I'm saying, because you're allowing something to naturally occur. The status quo isn't always a bad thing. It's just that it would take a lot more time, and you'd have to contend with the fact that
take a lot more time. Plus, it might not always result in the end you were hoping for, I guess.
Well, I mean, the opposite could also happen.
Sure.
I mean, theoretically,
we don't know. It's time can tell.
Theoretically, a country that could be up and coming. That is not socially liberalized, but is very much economically liberalized, and has a culture in which it supports that kind of. Actually, I don't think so. Only because of the ideal, the concept of nationalism. Globalism and nationalism don't work. And
together, or
no,
just in
I
general?
Mean they're contradictory methods or ideals. So
some of the big conflicts we have right now in the United States.
Yeah. Well, so follow me on this.
Okay.
Let's say an authoritarian regime, or actually, I'll pose this as more of a question. So, is there a way in which an authoritarian regime can suppress or oppress its citizens socially without having every citizen or the majority of the citizens kind of believe in a nationalist pride?
Repeat that first part real quick.
So can an authoritarian regime or a very heavily top-down country like China,
yes,
can they use their current forms of oppression and suppressing the media and the methods they're using? Can they do that without having the majority of the citizens having a sense of nationalist pride? Because
I think it depends on the strength of the government itself. I mean, you can have a very authoritarian regime, but still be rather flimsy in its manners of suppressing the people, and something like that, I don't think would really last.
Wait, give me an example.
Like, as far as an authoritarian regime,
Yeah, that has a flimsy.
I think any sort of like.
Talking about like pop-up government kind of things?
Kind of like where they might pop up a dictator, somewhere where it's quite authoritarian, but they really have no power over the people. There's, coups are popping up left and right.
I wouldn't really say that
but
qualifies.
I would still argue that's a pretty authoritarian regime, though.
Oh, yes. But
especially in the ways which they might attempt to suppress the citizens. So you're saying you're kind of already presupposing that this
is an established government.
Is already established.
Yes.
They have the strength to.
Yes, it is. It has not been. It is not in a transitionary period. A transitionary period would really affect those kind of issues. And actually, it would make revolution a lot easier for the people.
Sure,
in my
or
opinion.
anything that might come up within the system itself to sort of cause that transitionary period to start.
Yeah.
So with the government being. Already presupposing that the government has quite a strong hand over the people. Mm-hmm. I think over time they would be able to, or I think they would be able to, but over time I would say it would become increasingly difficult, especially as more and more people lose that sense of national pride, and then you would kind of end up in a position where you're almost at odds, where you have this massive authoritarian power which is doing everything in its ability to suppress this opposing side of these of the people who really don't have any sense of pride for their country anymore. Yeah.
So I'm actually going to say no. I don't. To your original question, I don't think that the opposite could actually happen. Having a large authoritarian regime kind of culturally influence the global kind of sentiment, at least not without them kind of physically invading other countries and amassing more land and acquiring citizens that way. Just because it requires a nationalist pride. There'd be too many revolts against that kind of authority.
Sort of bound to fail.
Yes. I think globalism relies on the sentiment that you are a kind of a citizen of the world kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's very metropolitan-esque. And that requires democratic thought. Now, it can still be a very cohesive kind of thing, where you feel like you are a member of the world rather than being just an individual. So those aspects could be different, but an authoritarian regime that requires nationalist sentiment, I don't think would be able to be
because that nationalism just wouldn't transfer.
Yeah, it can't.
Well, let me ask you this: you don't think that perhaps that authoritarian regime and those sort of ideas could transfer to said other country, but allow those people to sort of, I guess it wouldn't necessarily be cultural, but they could kind of maintain their own national identity,
yes,
but still be oppressed by that.
The argument against that is that globalism would fall apart then. You'd end up having probably economic wars due to that. The more nationalistic sentiments you have, the more you feel like your country is superior to another country, and the less likely that any given citizen is going to feel like a citizen of the world. Therefore, you're going to want to try to get the upper hand on any other country you can, and it'll actually halt
I completely agree
the
with
trading
you.
Of goods.
I completely agree with you on that.
Oh, yeah.
So let's just throw this out there.
Okay.
Let's say you think, I mean, this seems very idealistic, but you think perhaps they could hold these nationalistic sentiments, but at the same time sort of appreciate the benefits that are provided by that globalism and kind of have mutual respect for these other countries. I hate saying that because I
That's
completely
weird.
disagree with it.
Yeah, no,
That sounds like a very running through a field full of flowers.
yeah, that's
Somewhere over the rainbow kind of.
oh man, no,
All countries united.
I
We're
100
great, but we appreciate you as well.
Oh yeah, we are the best, but y'all are cool too, you know? No, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
I honestly think that
Just saying that sounds wrong.
yeah, you can't have
In a very idealistic world.
yeah. I mean, ideally,
One that we have never seen on this earth.
I mean,
to this day.
it has not happened. It requires a.
I could see it happening in a very, on a community level, perhaps. At some time or the other. I mean,
and maybe that
a mutual respect for your neighbor, but also seeing the benefits of working together as a community. But you sort of have to know that person on a personal one-to-one. On a personal level.
So the nationalistic tendency just relies on the fact that you are kind of making the assumption that you are better than, or at least that you are that you know your place, kind of thing.
And even if you do kind of even have a sense of mutual respect for another country, at the same time you're always in the back of your mind you're always like, they're all right, but we're
better.
We're the best.
Yeah, which is really dangerous, and I think that would kind of poison the well of globalism.
Sure.
So I honestly, no.
But I mean, you could say at the moment there's a lot of that goes on.
That's because we're in a transitionary period. We are not a 100% globalized world yet, or else a lot of things would be different. Hell, we're not even a fucking united country at this point. Sure. So there are those aspects that we have to contend with. So the issue is we're actually at a war of ideations. You'll see nationalistic tendencies popping up in places like Poland and Hungary and Germany with what is Germany's? They have a party. It's the AF something.
As far as their far right party?
Yes. It's the AF something. It's an anti-immigration
Brexit
kind of thing. Yeah, Brexit would be a nationalistic kind of movement. In the United States, we've
everybody's familiar with that, hopefully.
Yes.
We don't need to go into that.
We've elected a populist leader, and populism kind of has a I don't want to say it always, but it can lead to a sense of nationalism, and that's an issue. And of course, you're also contending with things like ideations like the formation of the the European Union, also trade agreements between multiple countries, TPP. Actually, and I know all of these are economic examples, but they're still important. There are a lot of theories that state that economic trade and treaties and agreements follow other kinds of agreements. So peace treaties and things like that. So
you mean the other way around?
Yeah. No, actually. So let's say a trade war is kind of going on, and then there is some conflict. If you create an economic partnership with another country, you're not going to want to hurt them because that will inevitably affect you.
So the trade policy comes first.
Yeah,
and that would,
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you said it the other way.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You said that would follow. The trade policies would follow.
Oh, no. The peace treaties and things like that would follow the trade. Yeah. And I mean, you saw that with the European Union. It was formed because there was a lot of fear of Germany, and then they wanted to kind of put strictures on.
But you also see from a lot of these trade policies is that's what a lot of people are pointing to when it comes to their nationalistic tendencies. Even though these are economic policies, they're kind of pointing to these as being the reasons where they, I mean, with Brexit and a lot of that that side in America kind of looking to pull out of a lot of these agreements.
Yeah, well, the issue with this is that not all of these agreements are fair.
Sure.
Some of them may have been signed or agreed upon in bad faith, or one country is kind of getting a leg up, and there's kind of a chicken or the egg argument. Did nationalism kind of poison the efficacy of these treaties, which kind of promoted more nationalistic tendencies by basically having the citizens become angry. Yes,
more.
Exactly. So you kind of get in a chicken and egg kind of argument there. So I don't want to get too much into that because I don't have the answer. But I'd also say that...
Keep in mind, we don't have the answer to any of these things.
That is true. That's the point. Yeah, because, I mean, everyone wants to hear two guys just saying that this is what people need to do.
At the end of the day, does it really matter?
Yeah, truly. No, but these trade policies and things like that, while some of them are not completely fair, they are a stepping stone towards globalism, and the nationalism that's arising out of that, be it from the trade agreements that may have been kind of poisoned, or just by individual or collective or communal sentiments around how they think their country should be. There's a war between nationalism and globalism, and I think globalism will inevitably win, but
at what cost?
At what? I don't think there's too much of a cost. I think there will be.
Well, I guess by what cost? I guess I'm saying, what are the steps that will happen in between then and now?
Well, first off, we got to figure out how to do fucking fair trade. Because there are issues with certain trade agreements between countries that obviously show an advantage for one country over another. So if you utilize fair trade tactics, then things will get a lot easier. Also, you kind of need most of the countries to be economically equal. Like if you want your per capita GDP to kind of be equal, like overall, or at least a high average. That way, the citizens in each country are basically making the same, and that's where you get a lot of the discrepancies in prices of products, especially tangible products. The discrepancies in prices are wages for workers. The human resource is the most expensive resource.
And then from that, you're going to remove a lot of these sort of class warfare that exists that people will then automatically turn to nationalism.
You'll get rid of these. Yeah, you'll get rid of these tensions between countries, kind of things, and it'll also, in a country, kind of like you just said, it'll reduce the tendencies to think that, all the jobs are going to China or Vietnam or wherever the hell, or Mexico, because I mean the jobs wouldn't. I mean, if they moved, you're paying the workforce about the same. So that's what you'd want to do, and it would actually, if things were at a better playing field, and this won't happen for a long time. I think it could happen. You'll eventually get to a place where we're all at a, maybe not a completely equal, but we're at a comparable level. And at that time, we'll start competing more on different policies, trying to find best practices and things like that. And whoever finds the best one of those will kind of go up. You've got to find a balance between the environment and business and things like that. and whoever finds those best policies will kind of raise a little bit in power, and eventually the other countries will hopefully adopt that as well, and then they'll rise up, and then that is the start of globalism.
I mean, you already see some of that with, I forgot exactly what it's called, but
I mean,
where countries will kind of catch up. Or they'll kind of play catch up.
It's called a catch-up economy.
Catch-up economy, exactly.
I mean, China did that from the 70s to the early 2000s, and they're still growing at like a rate of 6% or something, 7%. I mean,
Africa,
Vietnam,
starting to do that
Africa's
now.
Doing that. Oh man,
even America back in pre-industrial era.
Yeah, eight. Actually, it was still industrial era.
Moving into the industrial era around that.
Oh yeah, actually
post.
We really skyrocketed there. But no, catch-up economies are a thing.
Just looking throughout history, you'll see that continuing as the cycle goes on.
And I'm hoping that we'll see that within our lifetime, because that would be a really incredible thing. I don't think we will.
What in particular, as far as
the majority of countries kind of catching up to a comparable level to one another, and you're not seeing as huge of a discrepancy. I think
you're
that
definitely seeing a move towards Africa being the next sort of player on that stage, but how long will that take? It still takes a good amount of time, despite the technological advances we have nowadays, making it. So sort of every cycle makes it even faster.
There's also an issue there. Right now, globally, the highly industrialized countries are now kind of pushing towards environmental protections and things like that, and that's affecting the catch-up economies that are popping up in Africa, and even you'll still see some in Central Asia as well. There are arguments by these governments basically saying, okay, so y'all got to hurt the environment and then really get your economy going, but now when it's our turn, you want to say we can't. And
it's like kind of applying this blanket sort of rule to all countries when we're not already on a level playing field.
Exactly.
When it comes to
I don't have an answer to that. I'm not going to go into
that's probably something where you need to sort of
you got to figure out
maybe certain countries, but then
while also protecting the environment, because that affects us all.
Spot to be in.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be rough, but we were talking about China.
We're still close.
Yeah.
So moving on, I have a few questions here I just wanted to throw at you. And you had mentioned this before, and I just wanted to, it's a little bit of a tangent, but you seemed really excited about this thought. But as far as China and their separate regions, I guess you could sort of tie it into a social kind of revolution in China, but using their different regions as sort of like test beds.
Yes.
Or
yes,
a breeding ground to sort of test out these new policy, or let's say a social revolution within their country, then applying it to the whole. What's your thoughts on that? And not just within China, but using that throughout the world.
Okay, so first off, I'm a little bit skeptical just of the thought, primarily because when you're talking about social liberalization, you basically have to have one of these provinces go up and say that they, to their single-party system, that, hey, we're going to allow our people to protest.
You're kind of talking about this individual reason sort of go against odds of the entire...
And while China is actually
I believe I read somewhere where they actually had a few people within the party attempting to kind of do that. And I think it was back leading up to like the
Tiananmen Square
massacre. And you sort of had a lot of these individuals within the party, had leaders kind of coming up, hoping to sort of enact this social revolution when their economic I guess you say economic liberalization and kind of that opened up. It was like sort of the next step.
Yes.
and those were obviously promptly shut down. But
yeah, well, the issue is there's especially in the state of China's view, that party's view, economic liberalization and social liberalization are two vastly different things. And they want economic liberalization badly. They want it real bad.
without
The social liberalization. Damn, that's a hard word to say.
I've been fucking up words all day.
But anyway, so it will be kind of rough because you basically have that province saying, all right, single party system, we're going to allow our citizens to, I guess, protest whenever they want. They're allowed to speak out. They're allowed to...
Maybe not take it that far, but let's take it more in the form of removing some of those restrictions online, or
actually, if you're
where it could be argued that it has its benefit, not directly against what China is attempting to do.
Actually, I could make a very good argument for that. Primarily because even in China's constitution, they basically say that the state will provide all of the tools that individuals need to advance scientifically and technologically. That's actually in their constitution. It's the revised.
I see where you're going here.
Yes, a provincial
kind of working within their own law.
A provincial head of state could basically make the argument that to do that, you need to have the citizens of your province to be allowed to access all aspects of the internet so that they can truly have all of that research. They want a variety of ideas, and that will help creativity, and in turn that will allow us China to innovate. And I think you'd actually see that a little bit. And if you can if you produce those results and can link it to that liberalization, then you can do that on with another province. I think if you did it incrementally,
seeing the light.
Yeah, I think you could do that incrementally. That would really, really be helpful. And then you kind of go a little by little over the years. But I think that could work.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, that in particular, man, that you'd actually, you could actually do that through cities, because there's a lot of economic liberalization there already.
Sure.
I mean, there's the purchase of private property, which I mean has only been allowed since I think.
When was that? I remember reading that.
80s or 90s, maybe even early 2000s. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I think it was early 2000s.
It's recent. Like
maybe 2000s.
Either within our lifetime or like shortly before.
It's definitely post the handover of.
Oh yes.
Tokyo.
Okay. Yeah.
So that would be like around mid 2000s, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean that's a huge deal. Originally, the state
that
owned
provided
everything.
a huge stimulus to their economy.
Yeah.
They realized
basically,
how
and they're actually dealing with the effects of that now. So. Another question maybe in the future would be, will China continue to grow at the rate it's growing, or will it start to run into issues like we are, where we're kind of producing a huge deficit through trade, and we're also having issues with our welfare system and other things like that, because that's a possibility, but I digress. But yeah, actually, that the incremental infiltration of a head of a province or of a city to enact that kind of socially liberal policies, especially regarding media, would be a great first step.
And doing it not in a way where you're not directly saying to the Chinese government, hey, we're trying to socially liberalize. It's more so it's working within their law to show the benefits that it can provide.
Yes. Of course, the downsides or the possible hangups that you'll see are only a partial liberalization of decensorship, if you want to call it, or there's also the issue of convincing a person to kind of stick their neck out.
You have to convince that individual from that provenance to sort of...
And that would be an issue there.
Sure.
But I mean, that may require the least amount of work. So,
moving on from there, and one other question I wanted to ask. I thought this was kind of interesting. Throwing it back to Hong Kong for a moment.
Oh yeah.
What would you say? What cards does Hong Kong hold in looking out for maintaining its own independence?
For now, the fact that they're able to protest, the fact that their numbers are pretty high, like the numbers.
So you say those cards are primarily held with the people?
With the people, yes. And in all honesty,
but let's say what's there to say that China can't just come in and sort of squash the entire thing? What do you think? They have anything more? Would it require a
China
power?
Will do that.
Well, I know, but let's say at a more accelerated rate than they already are. I mean, we know they have the 50 years.
Well, you really have to ask yourself the question. Be
speeding things up.
You really have to ask yourself whether or not Hong Kong's government is able to defend themselves against an infiltration,
which it doesn't seem like they're doing right now.
No. So I'd actually say that I don't think it looks good for Hong Kong. I think within the next 2 decades, I think that Hong Kong will basically be...
So you think that timetable's drastically being cut?
Yes. And even if not, even if Hong Kong is able to hold out, it's a moot point. Unless a foreign actor can kind of intervene and socially liberalize the rest of China. You may also see some revolts in our lifetime as well. You'll see Hong Kong citizens
even when it hits that 50-year mark. I mean, what's going to happen then?
There's going to be a lot of issues.
It's not like there's going to be a sudden flip of a switch and every citizen within Hong Kong is suddenly going to
fall in line.
Be accustomed to
so that's going to be a very interesting transition, and we should really keep an eye on that over the next few years.
And we'll just go into this briefly. What do you think if they accelerate that timeline? I think Taiwan's the next step from there.
In the words of Bianca Maurer, porque lo nos dos, or no los dos, that's what it is. They're going to do both at the same time. That's basically what's going to happen. It's not like China is too small and they can't kind of divide.
It's an island-hopping Southwest Pacific campaign.
Yeah.
South Pacific, excuse me.
And I do want to add a little preface by saying I know very little of Taiwan's situation.
Sure.
That hasn't come up too much in my research. I do know that there's a pretty significant protest or movement even, basically stating Taiwanese individuals stating that they're an independent country, and then China.
Well, you could argue they're even more independence than Hong Kong.
Oh,
even if it's not officially recognized by China.
Yes. And the issues there are very weird. And I don't know all the foreign actors.
It's another can of worms. So we'll do it another time.
But yeah, in regards to Taiwan, I think that China will try to I guess use their power over Hong Kong and Taiwan as much as they can, because in their view they're doing nothing wrong. They're bringing together their people. Yeah, and I mean that's how they see it. So yeah, can't really.
All right, I think that'll wrap up the main discussion, but we'll take a few of these comments.
All right.
that have been posted early on. You know what these are going to be. These are going to be lots of trolling. And
Oh, yeah. Thanks,
we'll
Bianca.
ignore a lot of those. Is communism an instrument?
An instrument?
Yes.
In what way?
It's a joke.
I was about to say, like, is it a tool?
No, it isn't an instrument. Maybe that's what he was going with.
Like, I mean, you can utilize that, I guess. You can utilize communism as a tool.
Okay, what separates communism from socialism? Answer that one.
Actually, they're the same in the classical sense. Like, if you're talking about Marxism, socialism and communism are the same. They're synonymous. But there is a difference between democratic socialism and communism and classical socialism. And that is basically the election of leaders. That also establishes an infrastructure for social liberalization. Actually, it's predicated upon that ideal.
And it's still allowing for that free market as well.
Well, yeah, kind of. Democratic socialism is a little bit different, I think, from what we typically as Americans think of democratic socialism. I always thought of democratic socialism as the utilization of the government to control most enterprises, but the election of individuals and leaders of our government is still in the hands of the people. And of course, there may be some mixture there as well between privatization and public ownership. But to be a true democratic socialist, I think I think even Bernie Sanders is kind of still far from that kind of ideal. I don't honestly think
to the right than most people might think.
Yeah,
particularly in America.
Yeah, I think he. I think he misuses the term classically, in all honesty.
Fair enough. All right. So would you describe Congress like a magic conch shell?
No, the magic conch shell at least works.
What are the odds of retaliation from Russia? I think this is going back to the
cyber attacks.
Yeah.
Actually, not that much. Putin has actually come out and stated that basically he can retaliate, but he's not planning on it. Only because that would create. Actually, it'd be a step up from a Cold War scenario. That would be rough. And in all honesty, Russia's not a huge issue. We could wipe them out pretty easily.
Ooh.
No.
Hot takes. Hot takes.
No. So strategically, we could though. Their economy.
I mostly agree. Yeah.
Yeah, their economy is not nearly as strong as even China.
Yeah.
And really, their powerhouse is Moscow. The surrounding areas are not all that great. And not all that developed.
The only card they have is just a larger nuclear arsenal, but I mean, a lot of those are decommissioned.
Yeah.
They don't know what they are.
Yeah,
They've been,
I really wouldn't worry too much about that. I'd be more concerned
somewhere out on the black market.
Yeah, the nuclear issue would be a problem, but I don't see.
And even in a traditional form army, I mean, you're talking about a lot of outdated tech there.
Yeah,
and it's not nearly as robust as
it's not. No. So I'd say if Russia wants to retaliate, technologically,
what
we are
he's
stronger.
saying is, if Russia wants to retaliate, come and get some.
Yeah. Thank you for summing up my words.
I read Democratic Diabetes. Okay. All right. So I think that'll close it up for the night. Do we have any housekeeping we need to do? I don't think so.
No. I mean, do you want to give people our emails in case they want to reach us? Anyone who wants to suggest
email.
Yeah.
What are you 45 years old? If you want to reach us by email, just send
just shoot Jeremy a text or Instagram him or Snapchat him.
No, but seriously, we're going to try to we're going with Sunday, I think.
Sundays, yeah.
We'll try to do it Sunday, maybe a little earlier. I'm thinking around 6, since it is Sunday. You know.
Yeah, and we got work.
We got to get up early.
Yeah, so there's that.
Being old men and all.
No, but yeah, if anyone does have any future.
Well, I think each week we're going to be, to give kind of an overview of what will be discussed, we'll come up with sort of another hypothetical that we want to
kind of investigate or research or talk about.
Get into, think about, you know.
Yeah. And actually, I think next week might do a couple options. One of them is to do with federalism, so maybe a hint there. Yeah.
Let's keep it on the down low.
All right.
Surprised.
But yeah, do you want to give out the email?
Give out the email?
Yeah.
I mean, you can find our email on our YouTube channel, The Pluralist Method. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Mm-hmm. I know most of these people in here already know us, but subscribe anyway.
Yes. And maybe write a review if you enjoyed this.
Only good reviews.
Yes, please. We'll
delete any. No, I'm just kidding.
Dang. We're really conflating our ratings.
Just get a 1-star on Yelp.
It'd be perfect. But yeah, this was actually quite fun. I enjoyed it. Again, rate, review. Y'all got the email there.
Subscribe. Be sure to like.
Comment.
This will be uploaded. Y'all have a Twitter, and we have a D&D.
So what's that?
We all need.
I can't see your
Twitter. We need to make a Twitter apparently, so we can throw out our hot takes.
Oh.
Like Dylan says, Russia, come and get some.
Shoot.
Tag Trump.
At Trump. The problem is I don't know how to use Twitter.
You got to learn.
So that'll take me a little bit, but I will try my best. What was that?
It's the claps in the chat.
Woo! All right. Well, thank you all again for tuning in for the Pluralist Method. And come see us next week. We'll be live streaming.
In the dog. The dog will be shown.
Oh, yeah.
The dog will be shown. Bring in the dog. Bring in the hounds. Release the hounds.
Bring in the hound. I hear him. Dun-dun. 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 And he leaves.
Let's see him. Bring him up here.
Mickey and I. There we go.
There he is.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's perfect. All right, everyone. Thank y'all for tuning in.
If you, this will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can view it again. Hopefully next time we're going to continue to improve, get a little more interaction. We'll improve the layout and the look. Mm-hmm. Very rudimentary right now. It's not too engaging, but we'll get better. We're getting there. It's our first time.
I like it.
We're going to continue to do this Sundays at 6. I think it'll be
Sundays
the time we're
6.
shooting for.
Yes.
And we'll go from there.
Nice. All right. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Have a good night.
And
for all you Americans.
And
4th of July, America.
Possible non-Americans, y'all are accepted here too.
No, it's 4th of July tomorrow. Forget all y'all.
All right,
America.
So on the 4th of July, you're not welcome, non-Americans. But any other day of the year, you're absolutely welcome.
All right.
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Bye.